It's time for another unsolved mystery, and this one is going to take us to the skies. But before we do that, today's question is, can you escape a burning building through an elevator? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're at it, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. The year was 1974, and the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta, Georgia was the place to stay. The hotel boasted over 1,000 rooms to swimming pools, several restaurants, and bars, not to mention its sprawling multi-level atrium lobby, which contained high-speed elevators. The elevators were modern conveniences with digital car operating panels, and they had a sleek design featuring floor-to-ceiling mirrored walls. On March 11th, 3 people checked into room number 1608. Their names were Walter, Margaret, and Diane. They were part of the World of Wonders science fiction convention that was being held at the hotel that weekend. Diane was the wife of Walter, and she had just given birth to their child less than 2 weeks prior. She was therefore understandably exhausted, but excited to share her first con with her husband and friend Margaret. Over the course of the next 2 days, the trio would attend various events in the convention, including a costume contest where Walter won 3rd place for his portrayal of a futuristic military officer. There was also a showing of the original Star Wars movie, which all 3 of them greatly enjoyed. At around 9:30 p.m. on March 13th, Diane wanted to head back up to their room, but Walter and Margaret decided to get a drink at the bar first. They asked the night auditor for directions to the nearest cocktail lounge, and he told them it was located in the basement under the lobby. He then directed them to the elevator and said that they should take it down to the 1st floor and transfer to the other elevator, which would take them down to the basement level. As soon as the doors closed and the elevator began descending, Margaret noticed something odd. What appeared to be a clear plastic bag was slowly floating down from above. She pressed the alarm button and yelled for help, but no one could hear her. When the elevator reached the 1st floor, the bag was still there, blocking the doorway. It looked like some kind of makeshift kite, and she wondered who could have put it there. Then she heard what sounded like shuffling on the other side of the door. Whatever was out there seemed to be getting closer. When the door slid open, both Walter and Margaret were stunned. Inside the elevator was a thick cloud of black smoke, and when they stepped out, they could feel the heat from their faces. The plastic bag was now hanging down like a charred black shroud, and they could smell burning metal and plastic. The fire was spreading quickly, and they could see flames shooting out of the shaft above. They tried to call out to Diane, but the smoke was too thick, and they didn't want to risk inhaling any of it. They needed to get out of there fast, so Walter led the way towards the stairwell as Margaret followed close behind. Once outside, they made their way to the front desk to alert the night manager, only for him to tell them, "You guys are nuts. There's no fire." He claimed that the elevator was not directly connected to the atrium, so it couldn't possibly be on fire. Meanwhile, the smoke was getting thicker and the heat was getting more intense. As Walter insisted that something was wrong, the night manager called the fire department. He figured that someone was just trying to pull a prank. But when the firefighters arrived, even they were confused. According to the night manager, the fire department checked the shaft and found nothing. He also said that the firefighters went up and down in the elevator and that it wasn't hot. Walter told them that Diane was still in the room, but by this point, the firefighters were ready to leave. The night manager convinced them that if anyone was actually in danger, the heat and smoke would have forced them out of the room by now. So the fire department left and the night manager went back to work. By this point, Margaret and Walter were panicked. They could see the flames in the elevator shaft from where they were standing, and they could feel the heat on their faces. So they started to run down the hallway away from the elevator, only for the night manager to grab a hold of Walter and ask him what he thought he was doing. When Walter explained that his wife was still in the room, the night manager told him that she would be fine because the fire wouldn't be able to spread to her floor. He again insisted that the two elevators were separated by a fireproof shaft, so the fire couldn't possibly reach their room. Walter and Margaret begged to differ, but the night manager refused to listen and told them that they weren't allowed to use the stairs. This was because they were deemed unsafe due to the construction of the building. You see, the Hyatt Regency was built with a unique design. The exterior walls were supported by concrete columns rising up from the ground, while the interior atrium was surrounded by steel columns. These steel columns were only bolted to the floor and had not been properly anchored to the rest of the building. Because of this, the fire department didn't want anyone going up or down in the stairs in case the steel columns collapsed. At this point, Walter and Margaret were desperate. So they ran to the far end of the hall and climbed onto a service counter to try and shimmy up to the second floor level, only to be stopped by the night manager. He grabbed Walter and pushed him off the counter, telling him that he wasn't going anywhere. He then walked back to the elevator and pushed the button for the second floor. As the elevator approached, he could feel the heat on his face once again. This time, however, instead of smoke, there was a loud banging coming from inside the shaft. The night manager opened the elevator to find Walter and Margaret standing there with shocked expressions on their faces. According to the night manager, he had never felt anything like it. His face and arms were burned and his hair was singed. His clothes were also torn and he had second-degree burns on his hands and face. Margaret screamed and ran down the hallway as the night manager led Walter into a nearby bathroom to cool his face in the sink. With the help of another employee, they got Walter's breathing under control and he was later taken to the hospital by ambulance. Meanwhile, Margaret made it to the front desk where she explained to another employee that they needed to get Diane out of the room. She said that the night manager wouldn't listen, but the employee decided to check it out for himself. He rushed to the elevator and as he stepped inside, the floors began to drop. The man screamed as he tumbled to the bottom of the shaft. Thankfully, he landed in a pile of rubble and survived the fall. At the hospital, doctors determined that Walter had suffered severe burns and was listed in critical condition. The night manager had also suffered significant burns, but the extent of the other employees' injuries was unknown. Despite the destruction of the elevator and the injuries sustained by Walter and the others, most of the hotel remained unscathed. A total of 34 people were rescued from the upper levels, but Diane was nowhere to be found. After 2 weeks of searching, the wreckage, Diane's body was found in the rubble of room 1608. The coroner determined that she had died from smoke inhalation. An investigation was then launched to determine how the fire started and why the elevator malfunctioned. According to the official reports, the fire started accidentally in the elevator shaft and the elevator malfunctioned because it was old and poorly maintained. But many people disputed these findings, including Walter's brother and the director of security for the Hyatt Regency. Walter's brother said that his brother was a heavy smoker and that there were definitely no smoking signs posted all over the hotel. He also believed that the night manager had played a role in the incident and that the fire was deliberately set. The director of security agreed, saying that the entire incident was suspicious. He also said that the elevator should have automatically stopped when the fire broke out and that someone may have tampered with it. But despite all the confusion, there was still one thing that remained clear. The entire incident could have been avoided if the hotel staff had listened to Walter and Margaret. So let me know down in the comments, did the night manager make the right call by not allowing Walter and Margaret to use the stairs? Or do you think that he was at fault for the tragic loss of life? Also, be sure to check out my new series where I cover missing persons cases and cold cases. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.